Good evening, everybody. After some absence due to objective reasons, Sunny Puzika is here with Let Us Attend episode 34. And today we're going to have a guest. Um, if some of you don't know who the guy is, he's not an insta famous guy who has 2 million followers because of sexy pictures. But Mr. Grant's been around for a number of years. I've been kind of watching him through social media and other channels for quite some time. And then I know some people who I guess we can call mutual acquaintances. And this idea to to have Mr. Grant on the show kind of came out of the blue. Uh, I was talking to some guys and some dudes. It's a dude talk about this and that going on in their life outside of the realm of training and preparing to fight and all this other good stuff. And this idea to talk to Mr. Grant kind of came to my head, and I contacted him, and thankfully he agreed to join. So we're gonna have, I think, a fun and exciting dialogue and discussion and chat today. But before we go there, let's just do really quickly a couple necessary things. Ammo Supply Warehouse, our sponsor, Butch Becker, great friend. Just spoke to him today, as a matter of fact. Uh, got some things being packaged and shipped my way. For all your Freedom Seeds needs, ammosupplywarehouse.com. Great people, great service, good prices, good selection. Go support them. Uh, it's a small business. People that run it, they're not just salespeople. I known Butch for better part of a decade. He's been taking classes with me and a number of other people for many, many years. So ammosupplywarehouse.com. Second, and Iron Pig Armament. Due to obvious reasons, I cannot pull in front of you and show what they produce, but armament should give you a hint what they make. Again, small business, student of mine, Doug, better known as Turtle, uh, owns the business, runs the business, puts everything together himself. I'm a proud owner of a couple of the items from his repertoire, so to speak, and I cannot recommend it highly enough. Uh, as a matter of fact, we at the point where we are planning for, to many of us here in the area, to a very dear person to us, our spiritual father, we are planning to talk to Doug about making a special item for our Orthodox priest. And last but not least, it's my wife's side business, a little side gig. Uh, Ford Honey Badger body sprays. Natural stuff, makes one for men and one for women. None of the chemicals, none of the bad stuff for you. I wear it daily. I still not very, you know, the best smelling guy in the room, but I like it. It's natural, it's good, and it is pleasant. So you can find those on our website, sunnypuzikas.com. Now, without any further ado, I will bring onto a screen Mr. Buck Grant. And Buck is, how would I introduce him? Let's put it this way. The guy, well, actually, he sent me an interesting introduction. I think you said something about slow karate and some kind of yoga, right?
Yep. Murder yoga.
Murder
Murder
yoga
yoga.
and slow karate. There you go.
Murder
So there you have it, guys.
expert.
Murder yoga. That to me just kind of like puts the dot on the line. That's it. I want it. I got to have it. Uh,
Very marketable.
yeah. Uh, do you mind sharing with our listeners as more people gather in? a little bit about your background. I know some of it, not much. I did not kind of stalked you and looked when you started training in Muay Thai and other things. Again, we do have some mutual acquaintances,
Yeah.
in the biz, so to speak. I've seen quite a few videos. I spoke to people that have taken classes in different events with you, and sounds like people had a very positive response about it. And while we don't do the same things and we don't do things similarly, to me, that's not a metric that I'm looking for. It's people that are dedicated and follow the purpose. And it seems, at least, again, we I don't believe we ever met in person,
Yeah.
but it seems to me like you are one of those rare examples that does that no matter what. And sometimes it may be unpopular, sometimes it may hurt people's feelings, sometimes it goes against the grain of quote unquote industry. So if you don't
Yeah.
mind, just very quickly, kind of your background in both, martial arts, and I know there are certain things we cannot mention, although, and I'm a really shitty karaoke singer, so I'm not going to try to sing in the Navy. But we're just going to say that you are for the last few years involved with training some special people that swim in the water and do things, and they are in the Navy.
Yeah. Those people. Yeah.
Those people, yes.
Those people. Yeah. Put two and two together. I live in Virginia Beach, Virginia. You can figure it out. Yeah.
Right.
Thanks for the intro. I been doing this thing for 30 years, martial arts. I got into it. It's like a common story, right? Bruce Lee fan, got beat up as a kid. Fill in the dots. A pretty good portion of men who get into martial arts, and we love kung fu movies. So I love that. 30 years ago, I got into it. Again, I got beat up as a kid, and I wanted to feel a little bit stronger about myself. So I got into karate because it was the only thing available. But I've been reading Bruce Lee's books since I was a kid. My mom gave it to me as a gift on a birthday one day, and I just got really into not only his style but his philosophy. But thinking about the way is no way. I mean, that really opened up the way I looked at the world. And then I got into martial arts, and I realized that some people believe that, and other people believe it until they create a style, and then their style becomes their religion. But I got lucky enough about a year into karate, feeling like, oh, this is fun, but this doesn't feel like how I got beat up in my front yard. This feels a little bit more like playing tag, and a lot of the culture and all that. Keep it in mind, we're not talking about traditional karate from Japan and Okinawa. We're talking about Americanized karate.
Yeah.
And I wanted something that was more close to a fight. So had a buddy in a college class tell me that there's this guy named Frank Cucci, who was a SEAL, was teaching Jeet Kune Do concepts. He was teaching Muay Thai, Filipino martial arts. I had never heard of either one of them. And he said, come check it out. So I walked in the gym, saw people slamming shins into pads, and they were doing real sparring and real grappling. Mind you, this is like the year before UFC 1.
Got it.
So UFC 1 hadn't came to the scenes yet, but Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu was already at our gym. And I looked at it. He said, come by tomorrow night. There's a fight going on. We have some Muay Thai fights. Again, I didn't know what it was. And I went and watched these guys like really trying to knock each other out. And it terrified me. And I'm like, that's what I got to do. And so my only goal was to get in there train for a year, do one fight to face my fears. And I got hooked. I got addicted. And 30 years later, now they're paying me money for a job, which still to this day amazes me. I'm truly blessed for that. But and so I did a fight career, several years in Muay Thai. Retired from that. Mixed martial arts was coming up on the scene, but we had already been training jiu-jitsu, and I'd already been training MMA fighters. So when I retired, I started coaching fighters. And one thing led to another. Next thing you know, I had a team and I had a gym. And I realized real quickly after owning a gym that I love to teach, but I don't love being stuck in any type of box, whether it be metaphorically or a physical one. And a couple of times having little, let's say, disagreements with business owners, I decided I'm going to take my show on the road. And eventually that turned into me running Muay Thai University, which is me traveling all over the world, teaching people how to teach, basically leading leaders, teaching teachers. The whole idea that teachers are the people that are leaders, or the people that exponentially change the world. So if I can teach a teacher, that guy will reach way more people than I will. And if I teach enough teachers, I can start shifting the needle of how just human consciousness kind of evolves through combat. And it turned into a career. And then about 5 years ago, I got this opportunity to work with the Department of Defense. At that whole time, I got really lucky to be linked up with Special Operation Forces, people, law enforcement agents, people who are really good with the gun and integrating firearms with martial arts. And I looked at it and go like, well, that's what martial arts always was. Martial arts was always a combat art first and foremost. And whatever weapon was there was the weapon of choice. It just happens to not be a samurai sword. Now it's an AR, or it's a pistol.
Yeah.
And so it just seemed like a natural progression. And my exposure to that put me in the right place to be able to serve the Department of Defense. And now I'm running the Wolfpack Initiative and trying to build the next generation of protectors. I think protectors are what our world needs more than anything, is people who are willing to understand what they're connected to and then protect that with everything they got. And that's how I ended up here on this podcast.
Cool, man. So you're still in Virginia Beach area, right?
Yes. Yep.
Okay.
So
Cool. Cool.
Yeah, most people don't know because I'm all over the place. I travel and I always post things like a week later, so everyone thinks I live somewhere else, which is perfect.
Yeah, actually, until today, I didn't know that you're in Virginia Beach. I'm like, I have no idea where he lives. Like poke the map. I don't know, Colorado or fucking, I knew you were not in Texas, so I knew that. But
Definitely not Texas.
you know, um, we're gonna talk about your Wolf Initiative because that's something that partially that's something that I wanted to focus more on than, let's say, combatives, martial arts, combat sports, SF, all of that good jazz that's so sexy these days, and it has been for decades.
Fun stuff.
But yeah, the fun stuff, the stuff that sells, the stuff that gets views on Instagram, and and all that good jazz. And I get it, man. I have plenty of videos on the ribs on Mark Fives, with the same people that you deal with, and yeah,
Yeah.
it's sexy,
Yes. Cool.
and I'm not
fun.
gonna deny it's fun, and there's a lot of good guys there. But I personally dedicate myself for the last now 10 years going to strictly teaching civilians.
Oh, really?
You know,
Okay.
yeah, and I will teach individual officers or operators or whatnot, and every now and then, one or two or three show up here and there. But I no longer would even consider doing department training or police departments or any kind of entities like that. And that's mainly due to what I saw and what I heard, so to speak, in the background during, you know, decade plus of teaching that kind of left very bad taste in my mouth
Mm,
because I
mm.
saw very severe separation between, the way a lot of people in that community, especially in the higher tier, the SWAT teams, the federal, the spec ops dudes, how they see civilians, how, these are almost like a lower caste and they're not deserving of this training and they should not get this. And why do they need to know how to kick in through the doors and clear the corners and all that? And now they should not have access to that. And I'm looking and I'm going, these are the dudes. By the way, it's me because
Mhm.
I'm no longer in uniform. I no longer have super studs backing me up,
Sure.
and I don't have a free ticket that I can punch someone's ticket to the other world.
Yeah.
I'm gonna have to stand in front of the law. I'm gonna have to stand in front of God, and face two judgments if I do something wrong. So to me, it was a kind of like a no-brainer to switch to civilian training realm. And I tell you what interesting happened, man, over years. And I want to hear your opinion because I know you're involved in both.
Yeah.
So to me, I know, it's been close to 10 years that I don't do organized law enforcement training or military training. Again, I still get individuals coming in and doing stuff, but I don't do contracts. I don't do any of that kind of stuff. But what I found, man, is that a lot of civilians, at least in my circle, maybe I just attract crazy people, I don't know, which is quite possible due to what I do and what things that I say. But they're actually more attentive.
Mm.
And what I mean by more attentive is that they look at the situations and possible, not just scenarios, but overall big picture of capabilities and what I refer to as a density of capabilities through the
Mm.
lens of I'm not gonna have a backup and I'm gonna be judged and measured much more harsher than any law enforcement officer or military stud or whatnot. And a lot of those dudes, they took really stock in their training to where they go like, the margin for me to make mistakes is so much less than what those guys can afford, contrary to what a lot of social media and hero worshiping out there does, like, oh, these are our protectors of our freedom. And I go like, okay, fine, cool. But I don't know, man. I really like doing civilian training, and I get it. There's sometimes I don't get much of that, but I see in some other classes there are some dudes come in that they sleep with special warfare underwear, thinking that they belong in Dev Doom just because they wear the trident on their dick.
Right.
And so I see that, and then I see guys that I want to be cowboys, and then I see guys that it doesn't matter this, it doesn't matter that. They kind of like, they choose what they like, what they want to stroke their dick about, and this is where they're heading, regardless.
Yeah,
Jiu-jitsu doesn't work. Muay Thai will take. The spiel.
I know the
Or
whole. Yeah,
or Jiu-Jitsu answers every question in combative realm. Or if
yeah,
I pick up the knife, none of this shit works, and on and on and on and on.
yeah.
What is your impression? Because you are more current as far as working with spec guys and working in those communities. Has the mindset there? I know it has matured because there was quite a bit of engagement in the past decade for those guys.
Yeah.
They deployed a lot more than they used to prior to, let's say, obviously 2001. And I was involved post 2001, so they were deploying a lot. But there were a lot of also new guys joining the teams and coming into the units that didn't have that, sandbox or mountains experience with 3 or 4 tours here or there. Now there's
Hmm.
pretty much everyone out there. They do have some mileage behind them. So I just wanted to, as much as you can talk about it, what do you see in the mindset with those dudes?
Well, I think once you get past the facade of everyone's identity, right, the thing that we
Yeah.
protect the most, whether it be civilian, LEO, military, once you get past that facade, there's only 2 things that are really driving any human behavior. And I see it across the board. It's what you love or connect to, and what you fear, you protect yourself against. And most we like to in when you look at positive psychology, people talk about focus on your positives, look towards the thing that you want to do rather than run away from the thing you don't. But if you look at really study human behavior, we're equally driven by what we are running away from and what we're running towards. And even in those communities, they have their fears. They have their fears of their insecurities. They are connected to their group dynamic, and they don't want to look weak or afraid. They don't want to look incapable. And so some people, that drives them to train really, really hard, and other people, it makes them put on more of a mask and hide away from it and hide away their insecurities. That's across the board, whether it be civilians or whether it be law enforcement. The issue being is who's running these organizations all the way at the top, whether it be the government running the military, the government running us. These people have an agenda, and they know that we're all run very strongly by fear. And so the best way to control any people who are afraid is to make them feel separate. Let's separate the military. Military, you are your own thing. You're a tip of the spear. You're special snowflakes. And you guys are here, the cops, the thin blue line, or something different. And then the civilians are kind of left like, are any of these people on my team? But they're all your people. Some of these people are your neighbors. They live right next door to you. They do the same things that you do every single day. It's just when they put their uniform or their identity on, now they have to conform to a group that if they don't answer to them, they are going to be seen weak. And a lot of that is just their own insecurities, trying to protect themselves across the board. So I have a bit of empathy when I see it. It doesn't excuse the behavior; it only explains it, and that's really all I'm here to do when I talk to anything people about human behavior. If you understand human behavior, you can have both empathy and discernment, right? I can say, oh, I get it. If I were in their shoes, maybe I wouldn't, maybe I would make the same mistake. And I should be cautious about anyone that sees me as the other. But when I start putting people in other categories, now we have separation, and now we have more fear. And we have an entire world that's run on fear right now. Yeah.
Yeah, it's one of my at this point one of my granddaddy classes. It's called actually Fear Inoculum. It's a 5-day class that I teach.
Oh,
Uh,
wow.
it's named after the my favorite band Tool album Fear
Ah,
Inoculum.
okay. Yeah. Hell
And
yeah.
so we do 5 days of diving deep into fears. And speaking of that, I saw something, and it's going to be on the bottom there, somewhere there, scrolling, that says, our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate. Our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. Do you mind expanding on that? Because I read that and I'm like, this is really good topic. And
Yeah.
so I'm not going to plug in any of my thoughts. I really want to hear your take because I'm assuming this was not accidental that you chose that quote to put at the beginning of some things that you have out there.
Yeah.
And I anticipated that. Well, actually, I would suggest quite strongly people listening, you may want to pay attention because there may be some things that you will pick up in there that may be helpful in your own journey.
Yes. That's one of my favorite quotes by Marianne Williamson. I actually heard it going through yoga teacher training. So I've dabbled, I've worn many hats to try to
Yeah.
understand people and I like to go extremes, like from fighting in a ring to namaste on a mat. And I heard it, and this idea that most of us are afraid of our excellence because our excellence comes with responsibility. If I can imagine myself 2 to 5% better than I am right now, then the affordances that I get from that are very attractive. But in order to live into that, I have to become something else. And once I become it, I have to maintain it. That is going to be my new standard. It's a new standard I'm going to hold myself to, and the world's going to hold me to. So it's often easy to lean into the idea that I'm not enough, I'm not special, I don't have what it takes to do it. When the real fear would be, oh man, if I did do that, would I be able to uphold that? And I think a lot of that comes down to when we look at any type of education, we're trying to educate people with rote knowledge, give them information. And if they can just take that information and apply it, then they're going to be successful. But we don't look at like the identity, the thing that you're becoming. That's what martial arts did for me. Is it wasn't just me fighting in a ring or a cage or on a mat. It was what that process was doing to me, the becoming that was happening as a result of me putting myself through those challenges. And if we could shift that perspective in people's learning, that like, yeah, let's go ahead and put it out there. Maybe you are not enough right now. Maybe you're not enough to live into the life that you want, to become the person that you want to be, whatever that thing is. But you could be. And if you start off by understanding that I'm not enough, but if I put myself through the process and I have a better relationship to failure, for example, instead of looking at failure as something that's against my identity, that means if I fail, then I'm a failure. No, failing is something that you do. Failure is feedback. If I fail and I look at it and go, okay, well, I got some information from that, then I can calibrate and I can move forward. But it starts with me having an identity or a relationship to failure, which still ties back to your identity. If I'm afraid to be looked at as weak or insecure or not enough, then I won't try. I won't put myself out there. But if your identity, you ever heard of a lady named Carol Dweck who did a book called Growth Mindset?
No, I haven't.
Yeah, I'll save you the trouble because you can pretty much have the whole book in like a couple of sentences. You have two different types of mindset. You have a fixed mindset or a growth mindset. Fixed mindset is very identity driven. If you tell your kid, for example, you are smart, you are pretty, you are strong, you're giving them credit for attributes that they may not have earned. They were born looking this way, born with a certain level of IQ, and they will spend the rest of their life defending that identity to a fault. But in a growth mindset, if you attribute to people's character, to the things that they do, the decisions that they make when they're afraid, and you tell people like, man, like you're the hardest worker I've ever seen. Like you never quit. Every time you get knocked down, you get back up. Changing the perspective to a growth mindset and saying that you're going to be rewarded in your ability to keep trying and do the things that you weren't born with. Like not be rewarded for your natural attributes, but just be rewarded for the things that you choose. I can tell you for me, I was not the most talented martial artist on the planet. I still am not. I still work every single day. A little harder to do at 50 years old, but I was not talented. I was just stubborn. I loved it, and I just kept showing up no matter how bad I looked. And there were people that were way better than me that should be way better than me right now. But at some point, they quit for whatever reason. Yeah. And a lot of times they quit because as soon as they were rewarded by, man, you're athletic, you're strong, you're talented. But as soon as they reach failure, now they're like, I'm a failure, I'm a quit. And I was used to losing early on. So it was just a natural progression, just keep showing up. I think that the fear of inadequacy is not the real fear. The fear is like, I have to become something. I have to like, I'm not what I want to be now, and I could be, but I'm going to have to go through hell's gates in order to do that. I'm going to have to look at myself and have a different relationship with myself and my own identity and decide, is the current identity the thing that's worth protecting, or would I rather dissolve that and become something else? Because when I dissolve my identity, it's going to feel like death. It's going to feel like, oh, that old guy that I am is dying. And that's going to be a mourning period. But if that guy dies, I get to be the new guy.
So let me ask you a question for clarification, right? Because we're talking identity, but you also mentioned character, right? Mm-hmm. And and correct me if I'm wrong, what I'm gathering that the way you look at things, that a lot of people, like I said, if youngsters being told you are fast, you are strong, you are beautiful, you are sexy, whatever the case might be, right? Mm-hmm. It's kind of identity entitlement that becomes like your punch card. This is your face to the world, right?
Yeah.
But if you, to character and understanding purpose, do what needs to be done and do it right and do the right thing, your character becomes your identity.
Yes.
As opposed to having that, the cosplay costume to present to the world. That's what I've been told I am, a Mr. Tactical freaking ninja, tier 01 operator and this and that. Right? But when you do the work and you go out there and you present certain concepts and you put it out to the world and people start going, right? So it's not per se your identity, but your identity is being framed by the work that you do.
Yes. Okay. And as a man in the world, a lot of our worth is based on what we do. And again, I'm not making it, bad or good or anything. It just is what it is. Like if you look at a boy and you take a boy who's 16, 17 years old, like what's the difference between that 16, 17 years old who grew up in suburbia and never had any responsibilities, or that same 16 and 17 years old who grew up on a farm and had to like work his ass off since day one and then got drafted early on into the war? Like, yeah, we're looking at what they're doing, right? We're looking at what they're doing, but one of them was more character informative than the other. And both of them are going to be your identity, no matter what. It's going to be the story you tell yourself about yourself that everybody believes is your identity. It's a story, right? It's like, okay, if I say that I'm smart and I'm brilliant, I'm telling a story to you. And if I show up enough that times that way, then everybody's going to be like, yep, that's him. That's who he is. He's that strong, independent guy. But now that can also be a trap. And it's like, okay, if anytime I'm not smart, am I going to just look like a dumbass? Or am I going to be like, I didn't know too much about that. I don't think I'm talking out the side of my ass right now. you can give me a little bit more information. It takes a certain level of humility that comes from a certain type of environment. But I love what you said about the character, becoming your identity, because the character that the demonstration of your character over time becomes who people know you to be. You just got to be careful what trap you put yourself into, what cage you put yourself into.
Yeah, I kind of tell my students, when we practice, when we do things, I call it the concept of eliminating the concept of target from your training.
Mm,
Even if we're doing firearms training, I remove the targets, and
interesting.
I go, all I want you to do, I want you to point the thing where it needs to go, and I want you to focus on your movement, your grip, your trigger press, your breathing, your other attributes. I don't want you to look at it as everything I do is my identity is going to be determined by that hole in the paper or that ping on the steel. Like,
Mm,
and you do that long enough, once that target appears, the work gets done. You don't stand there and
fascinating.
going like, I want to be rich, right? No, you go there and you make your quarter, you make your dollar, you make your $100. And I don't sit at the end of each day and go like, how close am I to my goal of $10 million? I know I'm far enough.
Right.
I know I know I'm far enough. Tomorrow is a
Yeah.
new day. When I wake up, get the wheels on, get rolling, get doing shit.
Yeah.
And it's interesting because I think, and that's something we spoke yesterday with some guys on the different podcast, is that when people become target oriented, and not just in shooting but in life in general, they go like, I have goals. Goals are targets, right?
Hmm.
It inadvertently brings anxiety into your daily life. An anxious person cannot have good performance.
True story.
Because when you think about it, what is anxiety? Anxiety is outward expression of your fear. And like you mentioned in that phrase, that our deepest fear is not that we are inadequate, but our deepest fear is that we are powerful beyond measure. So then it becomes that disconnect, and when you mentioned, giving people knowledge, right? We can talk for fucking until cows come back and give them knowledge about Muay Thai elbow or Sistema neck break or Jiu-Jitsu triangle, whatever, from
Mhm.
basics to the most advanced work, right? If that knowledge does not become understanding, and that understanding is not actionable, so you have a difference. The knowledge is somewhere here, the understanding is 6 steps below, and the ability is another 12 steps below that.
Yeah.
That's a huge disconnect, man. And with
Huge.
most dudes, that's what I noticed. And when you ask them, how do you judge that identity? They go like, well, I wasn't able to perform up to my knowledge or up to my understanding.
Mm.
And you go
Hmm.
like, maybe sometimes too quickly and in too big of a servings would give people a lot of knowledge. And partially I think that's social media. Partially it's because we become known now by being on the screen, not
Yeah.
not going in person, rubbing skin, and earning our stripes and bruises.
Agreed.
And knowledge became a product. Knowledge
Yes.
became a product that it's much easier to sell than actual ability or understanding, because to give people understanding, you have to put that knowledge in practical terms and go, and the word became flesh.
Yeah. Yes.
you
Yes.
you got you got to rub it, you got to
Yeah.
bruise it,
Gotta bruise it,
because
man.
that's how that understanding becomes, it's frameable. It's not something obscure, it's not some bullshit, that sounds like some hippie, whatever.
Yeah. Yeah. Some quote.
And
And it's a big reason why I switched over to the last 2.5 years. I switched over to ecological dynamics for training. I don't drill at all in any shape or form. Every now and then, and I guess we could always split hairs on what drill means, but
yeah,
essentially, if I take someone, triangle's a perfect example. It's like we can talk about the leg being at 90 degrees and you got to be off on an angle looking down
yeah,
his ear hole and blah, 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 blah. While this guy's just standing there like a mannequin and letting you choke him out. And then you go live and like, I haven't pulled off a triangle in forever. It's like, well, they don't have the experience that was informed in order for them to iterate. They didn't have the feedback. And so I put them in conditions and guide their behavior towards a task, and and fighting's a zero-sum game. I tell this one guy, your job is to, we'll start like, for example, like a quarter triangle. You just got one leg over the neck and one leg with the arm on the inside. Legs are crossed, but you're not in a triangle. Your whole job is to hold them down and then get your foot underneath the knee pit, and then think about compressing the neck and shoulder together. Whatever way that looks like. The other guy, do the opposite. Keep his hand off your head, get your posture up. If you get your posture up, you win. Right then and there, I've given them enough information for them to go play. And then it's very clear. It's like, okay, if you got the triangle, what did you do? I held his head down. I got off to that 90-degree angle. If you didn't get it, what happened? I didn't hold his head down, and I didn't get my leg to that 90-degree angle. Perfect. Now you have an experience that was guided to a way that you can like go, okay, this is what I didn't do. But it's live and it's actionable. It's not me giving giving a dissertation on the triangle, 20 different techniques, things that go into the triangle to make it perfect, waxing poetically about it, hearing myself talk while the whole class glazes over. And then when they go do the triangle, they're like, what did he say again? What was move number 20? Nobody freaking remembers, but I feel good because look how much knowledge I have about this. It's like, well, that doesn't matter. That guy still can't do a triangle. Like, let him get in there, let him hunt. Let them hunt. And then they will be informed. My job is just to guide them, and then they will get. I think that's where the knowledge and the experience kind of cross over for me, because again, it's not theirs until they live it. Like all aspects of life. You have kids?
Yeah, I have 3 kids. I have 2 from my first marriage. So I have a 22-year-old daughter who's about to graduate in Florida. So I'm going to go to Florida for her graduation. I have a almost 17-year-old son who lives here with me on the farm, and we have a almost 4-year-old daughter.
Wow, what a spread, man!
Quite a spread, dude. I'm 50. I'm 56, and I have a 4-year-old child. So
yeah,
I
no
should
rest
be.
for you.
I should be a grandpa, and here I am going like, Aria, it's party time,
Putting
Yeah.
putting new kids out. I mean, you know more than anybody. Like you can tell your kid till they're blue in the face, don't do this, do this. But until they mess up and they do it on their own, it's like I don't really know it until they get like the.
Now, as I said, it's the potty training for our youngest one, so you remove the diaper and just put underwear, and when that becomes wet and uncomfortable, she's like, "Oh my God!" It became real,
Yeah, yeah.
And so it's an adventure. Let's put it this way.
It sounds like it.
For sure.
Sounds like.
Yeah, we live out in the country. We live about 2 hours east of Dallas. It's a farm. It's a shooting range. It's the whole 9 yards out here, and.
Oh, man, so, I want to be you. I want to be you when I grow up. Damn.
Yeah, we try as much as possible not to go to the city unless we absolutely have to, because at this point, after moving out of Dallas like 7 years ago, I'm like, someone can offer me a $3 million mansion, and the answer is going to be no without a thought.
Wow.
Without a thought.
That says a lot.
Yeah. So.
What do you prefer about that type of lifestyle? Like, what do you prefer? What is it that's more attractive to you?
For one, and it's kind of, I don't have this, incredible network while it still exists because someone allows it to exist of to call this guy to fix that. No, everything is me. You know what I mean? If my pipes are leaking, I gotta get it. I gotta get shit done. If we're growing tomatoes and there's not enough water, I gotta get shit done. You know what I mean? If we have an ice storm and 62 trees fall down, I gotta pick up that damn chainsaw and cut it up because the range needs to be cleared because on the weekend we have a class. And
yeah.
At first people go like, man, that's hard. I go like, you can say that it's demanding. I wouldn't say per se it's hard, but man, everything that you have and everything that you do is earned. You know what I'm saying?
Mm-hmm.
It's not offered, it's not loaned, it's not someone's goodwill, it's not government's, here, we're gonna allow you to use this service or this and that. And by the way, 6 months later, we live in it's unincorporated area. I don't have to get permits, I don't have to. So you basically in modern America, this is, besides being a true off the grid person, this is as far as you can get away from the system
That's pretty
without
close,
going
dude.
without going completely off the grid. And now I had few of my students, few of them moved out of state and moved here. They just yesterday signed the paperwork for 40 acres, literally across the street from me. So we're gonna have
Man,
like a village of people that train together and do things together and
that's
everything. So
awesome, man. That's
it's
the dream right there.
it's pretty cool. It's like, community of tough guys doing fun stuff, and you know, we go to the same church, we eat at the same places, we hang out, we have radio connectivity with each other. If the grid goes down, we have support network of things. So it's pretty cool. And then we get together on the range, and we do things. And then if we decide to do something in the dark, we do it because it's my place and I don't have to ask for permission. It's not a public range; it's a private training
Man,
facility. So it's pretty cool.
that's
It's pretty cool,
awesome.
man.
You just spoke to something that like really resonates with me. Even when we talk about this whole ecological thing, people will nerd out about it, but I just think about like your environment is your classroom. If you
Mhm.
put someone in the right environment, they will flourish within the constraints of the environment. They have to, like you said, it's on you. If it doesn't get done, it's going to be on you. So you had to know these skills or learn these skills in order to do that. And I feel like that's with everything we do, right? Like if you put people in the right environment with the right type of people around them, close enough, just close proximity, you get kind of, we used to call it the rub in fighting, right? Like if
Yeah.
I walked into a room and I'm the worst guy in the room, and if I stay in that room long enough, I'm gonna get my tail handed to me every day. But a little bit of them rubs off on me, a little
Mhm.
bit. Just being in the room, regardless of whether if they could be a teacher there is great, there could be a teacher that's terrible. But if I got enough guys and they're like, I show up enough and they're like, oh, that guy's gonna stick around. I guess we'll start teaching him a little something. You'll get better. You'll get better. And that's why when I couldn't find the environments that I wanted to have, I kind of did what you did was I created my own environment. It's like, what kind of people
Yeah.
do I want around me? What kind of team do I want? And, you know, I don't want people that are like me. I want people that are better than me in certain areas. If that guy's a great firearms instructor, I want him on my team. Like I know how to fight. I can shoot a gun well enough, but I don't shoot as well as he does. I want to be
Yeah.
around that guy. Because if I stick around him long enough, I may not be as good as him, but I'll be better than people who don't hang out with that guy. So
No,
I commend you
absolutely.
for that.
To me, it's the same way. I'm not the best shooter. I mean, I can shoot, but when it comes to certain specific work of clearing rooms and trenches and doing that stuff, yeah, that's my specialty. I have students that are better shooters than me. I have students who are BJJ, very
Yeah.
high level BJJ guys. Like you yourself. I noticed that you were working with Jarrett. As far as
Yeah.
Filipino arts, you were working with some guys from Krav Maga, and then I believe through Jarrett, you also to a certain degree got involved with his Tricom, right? They do
Yes.
some mix of the firearms and combatives and all that kind of stuff. And yeah, that's to me that's exactly an example to where you're not trying to be the master of all trades. You know where your specialty is. You know what you're really good at. And you offer that, and in that environment that you create, if it's not about pecking order of who's the head, who's the
Yeah.
next up or whatnot, it becomes honest exchange because honest dudes, and I love it
Yes.
because it's
Yes.
it's pretty damn simple, pretty damn simple.
Isn't it? You
Yeah,
think, you think, yeah, everybody wants to be the superstar of their group. They
yeah,
want to be the face and the name. And it's like, I
yeah.
get it.
I'm the head of the system. I'm the grand master of this, and I go like, well, I mean, I'm a grand master of Puzika's family. Yes,
Yeah,
what I say goes until my wife says no, and then it doesn't go. But
she's master of the system there. They'll answer somebody.
right, you know, and
Yeah,
but
that's
other
wild.
than that, I'm like, like my friend Lewis here. He moved from Tennessee. He used to work for James Yeager at Tactical Response for a number of years, and The guy can freaking shoot, and he's taking classes from me, but then I'm like, he's doing the class on the red dot optics, and I'm like, I'm gonna take the class with this guy. People going
Yeah.
like, what, you taking a class from your student? I'm like, why is this such a shock?
Yeah.
Why is this such a shock? And it's funny to see that attitude of, like, I cannot show. There's another quote that I really liked, and it's not coming from you, but I put it in my book that's about to be released, and I said, the true measure of a man is not what he tries to show to the world. The true measure of the man is what he tries the hardest to hide from the world.
Ooh,
And
man.
that one hit me pretty hard,
Ooh.
because the things that we hide, and this comes back to what we started with, when you mentioned, and I didn't hook on you then, but I'm gonna hook back now. When you mentioned something very interesting that I don't hear very often other people speak, is that really there are not basic, two fundamental things: fear and love, right?
Hmm.
And people go like, well, what about hate? I'm like, hate just a bastard child of the fear.
Yep.
What about strength? With love, you're gonna have strength, not with fear.
Yes. Yes.
And people go like, so it is that simple? I'm like, well, actually, if you read scriptures, 365 times it's mentioned, do not fear.
Not fear.
If that guy 2000 years ago mentions it 365 times, that's written. How many times he mentioned, who the heck knows?
Right.
I tend to kind of sit down and go like, I'm gonna listen, and I'm gonna try to understand, why is it that I fear my inadequacies? Why is it,
Mhm.
and then you read simple things that I'm sure you saw. Uh, we fear what we don't know. So to me, I'm like, why do I fear what I don't know? Because I don't know. How do I fucking know? I go and do it.
Yes. Yes.
You know,
Yes.
I go and do it. If I don't know how to do it, I'm gonna find dudes that will help me to experience that. If I don't know what it's like to be choked out, I'm gonna go to some, I don't know, I'm gonna call Carlos Machado and go like, hey, can you put me to sleep a couple times, like efficiently and quickly,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
and that kind of stuff. But a lot of dudes, they seem to, and correct me if that's, I mean, let me know if that's your observation. A lot of dudes are absolutely happy to live in the world where they are happy to not know what they don't know.
Yes.
Ignorance is a bliss in that kind
Hmm.
of world.
Yes. It is. Because once you know, now you're responsible for it.
Hmm.
Because I don't have to be responsible for what I don't know, but once I know it, I can't unknow it. And now, anytime that I do the bad thing, the thing that's counter to that shadow of myself, now I'm doing it consciously. I'm doing it willingly. And it's like having, everybody talks about the elephant in the room. It's like the elephant's in that corner, but if I don't look at it, I know it's over there, but the minute I look at it, I got to address it. So I'll keep it in the periphery, but I can feel it creeping up on my back every single day. And it weighs on me like a backpack.
Yeah.
And I run away from that thing, but it's right there. And all I got to do is look at it. But then once I look at it, I have to address it. And
Cannot be
that's the,
unseen. Cannot be
mhm,
unseen.
and
You
be
know, and
unseen.
it was interesting. I kind of smiled when you said the shadow. I'm like, maybe the guy has read Carl Jung or something like that,
Yeah,
and
I've done a little Carl Jung work, man. The shadow work.
yeah,
That
that's
stuff is,
interesting.
it
Yeah,
is,
yeah.
it
It goes
is.
deep. It goes
Yeah.
deep,
I
indeed.
said one of our tenets in our Wolfpack initiative is we talk about, like, we use the wolf as an analogy, and we talk
Yeah,
about, the dark wolf that you see as the enemy is a reflection of the shadow behind you. It's the part of you that's unresolved and unwitnessed. And so when I hate something in someone, that doesn't mean that I am that person, but there's something that I have so much conflict with, because the way humans are designed, we can't hate or have any disgust for something that isn't within ourselves,
yeah,
something that isn't already there, because we're all humans. Everybody's a wolf. Everyone's a wolf. Everyone's got both ferocity and bonding etched into their DNA. That's just the way we were put here by the creator. And we have the power of choice. to decide what we're going to lean into. But before we can really say we're leaning into the light side of this, we got to look at the shadow, because that shadow wolf is just like any other wolf. It wants to be a part of a pack, but if it feels alone, it's going to find connection through control, through chaos, through manipulation. And that's in all of us. And we can stop looking at it all we want, but eventually that thing's going to come out through us. All I got to do sometimes is just look at that sucker and be like, hey, it is, because at some point it probably protected me. You know, any insecurities I've ever had, and I still have, are things that I probably had when I was a kid, and they still carry with me to this day. So feeling either inadequate, not enough, fearful of the world, that I'm going to be exposed for being something that I say I am, but I'm not. That fear it saved me at one point. It kept me safe when I was a kid, but now it's kind of destructive as an adult. And instead of just like, I'm going to go tame it, I'm going to go beat it down, I integrate it. I bring it into a part of me. Like, hey, thank you for keeping me safe. Let's use you for some good here, because we're on the same side. But if we don't look at each other, we're going to be fighting. We're going to be at war with one another. It's going to make me make some bad decisions out there. So I really appreciate Carl Jung's work.
Yeah, it's I've heard of him, I knew of him, but then when I was introduced to good Dr. Jordan Peterson,
Yeah.
I kind of, through his work, I jumped into some Carl Jung, and I bought some books and started digging into it. And then, of course, re-listening from years back, my favorite band again, Tool, where Maynard sings about my shadow. I'm like, so I started reading about that, and it's directly related to Jung's work, and I'm like, oh shit, man!
I've been hearing this all the time.
yeah. He knew this all this time, in this last album that was released 14 freaking years ago.
Yeah, right.
And
I'm just figuring this out.
yeah, it's amazing trip, man. It really is an amazing trip, and that's speaking of that, this is where I really wanted to talk to you about, because we both do combatives. We're both involved in making men more competent to deal with violence and to protect themselves and their loved ones and those who need protection. It's all good, it's all noble, it's all needed, very much needed, right? But men fight a lot of battles.
Yes.
And a lot of those battles are not the glorious fights to protect themselves or protect others. A lot of men struggle, and in the Western societies, me being immigrant from former Soviet Union, I'm watching this, and then I talk to some of my friends back in Russia, right? And I go like, dude, this term that our media uses here, mental health and all that, we have a fucking pandemic. Like with men, we have absolute pandemic here of dudes struggling with shit that I wasn't even aware when I immigrated here, that I'm like, what the hell is going on? And I wanted to ask you about, what is your take, whether it is cultural, whether it is that we are trained by popular culture, by societal pressures to limit the manhood. And I'm not talking about manhood size, because I'm sure someone's going to make the joke about it.
It's coming. Yeah.
It's coming. I mean,
it's
in
coming.
our companies, that's normal,
Yeah.
and it's okay. It's
Yeah,
perfectly fine. But that potential, given by the creator, potential of what men's supposed to be, what they should project. What is their job? What is their responsibility on this rock? I'm looking at a lot of dudes, and they do have, to some degree, they display that alpha male, whatever it's supposed to mean, attributes. At least
Sure.
the way they speak, at least the armor that they wear in front of the mirror, in front of the camera.
Yeah.
But then you pull them aside. I can tell you, man, I had 5 years in a row now, I did Fear Inoculum, the 5-day class. I've seen inner demons come out of the people that shakes you to the fucking core. Strong dudes. You know what I mean? Like not a pussy. Been there, done that, dragged his knuckles, spilled blood, smelled blood, licked blood. He had his own spilled.
Yes.
And then you see something come out that had nothing to do with the war, that had nothing to do with dead bodies and body parts, something from the childhood,
Yeah.
someone who willingly wants to forget 3 years of his life between certain age, and the dude is in his 40s. You know what I'm saying? And
Yes.
you go like, he's been dragging that shit throughout his life to this point where some heavy physical contact with some spiritual context added to it kind of opened the doors and allowed his body to let it go.
Yeah.
Because his mind was keeping that door closed, because that would show my weakness. That would show my, I'm going to be less of a man. I'm not going to be seen as this alpha, whatever I want to present to the world, you know? And I go like,
Yeah.
dude, if you don't let this go, you're never going to understand what alpha is.
Yes. Yes.
If you're willing to talk about
I'd
any
love
of
to.
that, because
I'd love to.
I think this is what a lot of dudes. That's why they train tough, they hit, they choke, they roll, and all that stuff. But when you touch the fucking soul, and soul can be touched violently,
Yes, it can. Yes, it can.
you don't see strong men. You
No.
don't. They may have black belts. They may have 16 knives on them. They may shoot fucking bullseyes from 75 yards on the move. But you touch that, and they fall apart.
Yeah.
What's your take? What's your take,
Yeah.
man?
You know, a therapist by the name of Gabor Mate, I believe is his name. He talked about trauma, and he said that in trauma, it's not the thing that happened to them that stays with them. It's the fact that they felt alone in it. And that really hit me, because even with this alpha term,
Yeah.
we got, first off, we got the alpha term all wrong.
Yes.
You know, the whole alpha wolf thing where you're this lone wolf going out there doing it by yourself. You don't need anybody's help. First off, the term alpha comes from chickens, because they have an actual pecking order, which is hilarious. When I hear a guy saying he's an alpha, it's like, oh, you're telling me you're a cock. Literally, you're telling me you're a cock. You know, you're right, sir. You're right. But they have a very linear pecking order because they're simple creatures. They did study on wolves and came up with this idea that the most dominant wolf is the one that leads. But the study was done wrong, and the guy who did the study actually redacted that information and tried to correct it almost too late. They took a bunch of wolves, put them in captivity, gave them limited resources, and they watched their behavior, and they watched the strongest fight to the top. What they didn't realize was that every single wolf in that captivity was from a different pack. And with wolves, a pack is literally a family. There's an alpha pair, mom and dad, who have kids, and everything that comes down from the kids comes through them. Only time someone leaves the pack is when they get to maturity. They want to have their own pack, and they leave. They go out to the wild by themselves, and which is the most dangerous thing for a wolf to do. But they leave. They become that lone wolf to go find or build their own pack. And so we got this whole alpha thing, like you have to be solo and alone. But even in wolf communities, they are familiar creatures. They connect to their family. They connect to others. They never do anything alone. And when you tell a boy that stuff it inside, don't tell anybody your fears or your insecurities or your weaknesses, because they're going to judge you and they're not going to see that they're going to see you're inadequate. What do you think is going to happen to a society of people that just stuff this in when we are literally primarily designed to be pack or tribal creatures? And we have a re-education to do. I mean, at the end of the day, if a person realizes, like, as an alpha, my job is not to be alone. My job is to be support, to be family, to be the father of a family. But a father has a mother that's supporting them, and he has friends and allies that come to their need, people that he can lean on and be able to share their deepest, darkest secrets. Not to everybody, but to people that you actually trust. And I love what you're doing with men, because I've noticed that if you get a bunch of men, and maybe it's not just men with you, but if you get a bunch of men in a room and you just get them moving and fighting and pushing each other around, the best therapy sessions happen at the end of training. Guys start opening up a little bit. They sit on the mat. They start talking about their personal lives and all the things that they're afraid of. They start sharing these things, and they don't. And sometimes that's enough to be like, oh, I'm not alone, because then they go, yeah, I've dealt a little bit with that with you. Maybe not with my wife, but with my work or or my friends, or I'm afraid that I'm going to look like an idiot when I go to work sometimes too. So I hide it in. You start realizing that you're not alone. And that now that you're not alone, you have this pack dynamic where that weight that you're carrying on your back, until you're ready to let it go, you have other people helping carry that load for you. And we have kind of forgotten that. We've forgotten that we're supposed to be together. We're supposed to work as a group, as a pack, as a team. I think loneliness, feeling like you're alone in a room full of people. You got social media where we're not designed to have more than 150 people around us yet. We can go on social media and engage with thousands of people, and yet we still feel separate because we're not connected to any of those people. Those people like love our stories and whatnot, but they don't really care. My personal experiences, I went through a really traumatic experience last year where I've had I'm sharing this all to the whole world because I think it's important. I had my first panic attack. I had thoughts that were scary. Like I had never had these thoughts before. I never let them indulge in those thoughts before. And it was because at the end of the day, when I went to go share it with the community, I felt alone. And it took one guy to come up to me and be like, hey man, you got something, if you want to share something, I'm here to listen. And that was worth more therapy than I have had for years, just to be like, oh, I'm not alone in this. Like I don't have to
But
carry this load.
when you were going through that experience, I was actually considering sending you a message, but I chickened out. Not chickened out to talk about it, but I'm like, I never met the guy. I don't know the guy.
Yeah.
But I had those experiences back in 2012.
Oh wow.
Those kind of experiences with, you know, those kind of thoughts, and for very similar reason.
Yeah.
We don't have per se to talk about it or whatnot, but
Sure.
yeah, those experiences shape you, and I did the same thing. As you talked, I became a lone wolf. I locked myself in, going, I'm gonna overcome because I'm a strong dude. I've been to wars, I've seen hell, all that, and it almost finished me.
Yeah.
Until I came out and I shared some experiences with people. And interestingly enough, it wasn't some kind of a extraordinary individual that has conquered the world before that made me strong or whatnot. It was a man of deep faith,
Wow.
who basically, and yes, he's my teacher. That was Vladimir,
Oh wow.
and
Okay.
yeah, and he told me, he goes like, can you stop feeling sorry for yourself? He goes like, I tell you what you need to do now. He goes, stop the car. He goes, get on the side of the road and give yourself 10 slow push-ups. He goes, feel sorry about something else, about your weakness. He goes like, and then we're gonna talk. And it was rough, you know what I mean? But at the same time, he goes like, listen, man, you know, whether it's a woman, whether it's a family issue or relationship issue or business or monetary or whatever the case might be that breaks you, that you feel like you reached the end of your rope. He goes, that is your identity crisis. And that's coming back to that thing when, initially at first when we were talking, you go like, we present that identity without earning identity that is actually our character.
Yeah.
And to find yourself as a war veteran, combat veteran, to be broken by that, you go like, what the fuck, man? What kind of alpha am I? You
Yeah.
know what I'm saying?
Yeah. I do.
And
Viscerally. I
then
do.
and then it's, and then again, like coming back to, I'm not like, I'm not worried that I'm going to sound like a fanboy, but the same dude Maynard from Tool, he has another band called Pussifer, right?
Okay.
And he has a song called The Humble River. And Pussifer was not like my style of music because it's kind of like not Tool, you know.
Right. Right.
And then I heard the song, and he goes, nature, nurture, heaven, and home, some of all, and by them be driven to conquer every mountain shown, but I've never crossed the river. Brave the forest, brave the stone, brave the icy winds and fire, braved and beat them on my own, and yet I'm helpless by the river. And then he goes, angel, angel, what I done? I faced the quakes, the wind, the fire. I conquered country, crown, and throne. Why can I have crossed this river? And then it goes further, But then you look at references that he uses in his lyrics, and you kind of go like, shit, man.
Wow.
Shit,
Damn.
dude.
Yeah.
You know, and then yeah, and then you go reading the scriptures, and then right here on my laptop, I have this little. It's in Russian. It's an Orthodox prayer, basically. It's a prayer of being thankful for every trial sent my way because it only serves one goal, for me not to depend on my own strength and understand that I live in His world and this is my job and I have no permission to quit.
Wow.
This job has
Dang.
it's been given to me for a reason, and
Wow.
and that's just it. And then the other day I was sitting during the we Orthodox Christians, our Pascha, our Easter is this coming Sunday, so there's calendar
Oh,
differences because of
okay.
Orthodox use different calendar. But so this is our Holy Week. You fast very hard, and for the 2 years I've done the Holy Week 7 days before the Easter, just water and bread and nothing else. I lose like 15 pounds, and people go like, "Are you sick?" I'm like, no, not
Mm,
really.
no.
You know, eh, Here's the interesting thing that happens, man. Last 2 years I've done it. You know, my priest would tell me, he goes like, humility is probably the hardest target you will ever hit. And what I found, man, that he goes like, you have to be weak to see the humility in the mirror. You don't eat and all that, and you feel weak and all that. But you know what the biggest thing was? I was proud that I'm going through it. It was pride, not the humility, that came out.
Interesting.
And then I go like, yeah, it's so easy to be proud of your hardship, of the cross that you carry or whatnot. And
Yeah.
and then 2 years ago, my wife, she's also Orthodox, and she bought a T-shirt that said this: "It's hard to throw stones when you're washing feet."
Whew. Real talk.
That hit me, man.
Yeah.
That
Man.
hit me, and that's what you're talking about is sometimes when we listen to other dudes, it's kind of like washing feet, and we
Yes.
should do that more often because dudes need it. It's not because they're weak, but it is shared strength.
It is. Yeah.
We go through shit, and there is no shame in it. And I
No.
think dudes would become so much better even at learning violence, understanding, and doing it in the righteous way if they faced that inner part in themselves that does not live up to their identity that they created for the world to see, but they're hiding that, because that's your true identity, is what you fucking hiding.
Yes. 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 That's why that shadow is so important. It's like you only know a piece of yourself, or you only let yourself know a piece of yourself.
Willful
And
ignorance.
yeah, willful ignorance.
Yep.
You know, there's no light on that thing, so you can kind of pretend, but it always comes out, and so you don't really know thyself. It sounds like a familiar phrase. Like
Yep.
you don't really know yourself until you know that part of yourself. I love the distinction you made between pride and humility. It's a great. How would you define that if you were to tell someone like this is the difference? Because I understand it from like hearing the story, but if you were to tell someone this is the difference between the two, how would you articulate that?
You know, in one class about a year ago, I had a bunch of very tough dudes, like real chargers,
Mm,
like just people that been through hell and fire. And I kind of threw this at them, and I go like, so I'm gonna throw a single words at you, and tell me which one makes you rebel the most, the one that you go like, fuck no, right? So I go like, pain. Everybody's like flat faces, no problem. You know,
yeah.
uh, go into other things, betrayal. You know, okay, fine. Uh, Abandonment, still kind of straight faces. You see some this because
Yeah.
people lived through something. Uh, Death. Some people kind of move their eyes. They're like, I haven't really faced it per se. So I don't know, but as far as I can tell where I stand, I should be okay with it. Then I started going into different direction. And you know what word hit everybody the hardest, and everybody kind of jumped and go, fuck no. What do you think that word would be?
Fear?
Obedient. Obedience.
Obedience. Okay. Ah.
And then we started talking. I go like, why did that word trigger you so bad without you even dwelling into the meaning of the word? And they go like, obedience is weakness.
Okay.
And I go, really? And a lot of you dudes are wearing the cross on your little chain. So what you're saying is that obedience to the commandments, to the word, is weakness? Well, it's different. Is it? Is it? And they go like, well, how do you train obedience in what we do? I go like, I'll give you one. You can go in reverse engineering ways. You find you're doing something, whatever the case might be. You're doing jiu-jitsu, you're doing gun work or whatnot. You find the problem, right? The most terrible question to ask always is, why do I have a problem? That's how we reverse engineer. That's diagnostics. Why do I have a problem? Well, I cannot hit the target because I cannot acquire the sights. Why you cannot acquire the sights? Well, the gun is bouncing. Why is the gun bouncing? Well, because I'm moving. Why is it bouncing while you're moving? Well, let me think about this now. You know what I mean? All of a sudden you start seeing, I'm like, is that a gun problem or is that a movement problem? Well, probably because I'm moving in such a way. I'm like, so why are you moving in such a way that produces all that shaking of the gun? Oh, because that's how I move. Why? And we start pushing. And I go like, do you understand what you're becoming? You becoming obedient to you questioning your beliefs.
Huh.
And I go like, because disobedience, we become cocksure of what we want to believe because we're comfortable with what we want to believe. It's our world. It's our fucking identity, right? This is what I want to believe. This is what I am. This is what I teach. I'm fucking master of this shit.
Yeah.
And I go like, you can practice obedience in just doing that. And eventually you're going to get to the point where you're going to be at the most basic level, feeling like absolute beginner, and you're going to be doing super slow squats or push-ups to develop certain physical attributes and neurological attributes that will gradually make your movement from doing this to doing this, where you can track your red dots, and eventually your platforms separate. Your feet move like it's a fucking, Abrams M1 tracks, but your gun is on the target. I'm like, this is not a technique. This is developing attributes. This is not how you fight, but this is why you fight better.
Yeah.
And dudes go like, well, man, that takes a lot of, I'm like, it takes a lot of mental honesty, intellectual honesty and discipline to actually examine what you do. I'm like, why you don't have discipline to examine what you do, but you're so quick to jump on the internet and criticize what everybody else does?
Yes.
Dude, that's pride, and pride and obedience don't go together. And there is no 30-70 ratio there. It's all or nothing.
Huh.
It's all or nothing. And it was very interesting to observe that group of very rough dudes to kind of move into this very lonely room into their own heads for the next half an hour and be very, very silent.
Fascinating.
So sometimes, I have talks like that with the dudes and they don't like it at the moment, but they keep coming back for more. So maybe it's hitting some buttons somewhere. God willing. I hope so.
Yeah. Well, I love that approach. Thanks for sharing that. That's very insightful, especially when I think about sometimes the difference between hearing information from like a mother figure to someone who's like a father authoritative figure, where things can be a little rough and you may not like it, but it's like a medicine that kind of trickles into your system until all of a sudden you go, I'm so glad
Yeah.
he made me feel uncomfortable in a way that I've never been uncomfortable before. Like there's certain types of discomfort that we're comfortable with, right? When you said pain, and guys go, like, my life's pain, not a big deal. But the pain of looking at myself, looking deep into myself and being like, ooh, I didn't want to see that. Let's go back to pain. Pain, physical pain is so much easier than like looking at myself in the mirror
Yeah.
and being like, oh
Yeah.
man.
And you know what? And you can be proud about how much pain you can handle.
Yeah.
And that's the problem, because we pick our weaknesses and we present them as our weaknesses. So it's basically pride in the cloak. It's pride in the cloak of humility.
Yes.
That's
Yes.
that's that's fucking self-deception, man. That's the worst thing you can do, is to lie to yourself. And
Yeah.
that becomes a habit. You become what you do. And when you lie to yourself, guess what you're doing to dudes around you? Not just dudes, the women that you date, the women that you married, the children that you raise. You become a fucking liar.
Yeah. Yeah. And you're selling a false you to them.
Mm-hmm.
You know, I think about this like when people are courting or you're looking to hire someone on, how good we are at the interview, right? We're very good at the interview, but we know the interview can only last for so long. And some people can stretch interviews out for 6 months to a year. But at some point, it gets tiring to keep that mask up. And then that part of you comes out. That part of you comes out. Now, some of us, when that part comes out, we can look at it and be like, ooh, I don't like that. I should do something about it. But we're so good at defending our identity that often when that part comes out, we'll find an excuse. It's like we are emotional creatures that have a logical brain, not the other way around, contrary to what we think. We think that we're these smart intellectual beings that happen to have emotions. Like, no, your emotions are running the show way more than you think. You're just so smart, you can trick yourself and other people that even your lies are true. And as you illustrated, the worst person you can lie to yourself is to yourself. You'll do it to a point where you actually believe your own lie.
Oh, I divorced a woman like that about 12 years ago, and I'm still going to court once a month against her. And so, yeah,
Oof.
I know that very well, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it was interesting what you said about the interview, because so on our wedding anniversary, I posted something to social media to my wife, and I called her a beneficial adversary.
Ooh.
And some people go like, dude, what do you mean? And I go like, we went to a dating time when we were dating, and that was our interview.
Mm-hmm.
Then we married. Then we bought a property together. Then we moved into all the hardships, both financial and learning new things and living in the country and not having luxuries and not having, stuff that city teaches you to depend on and rely on, be entitled to. And I go like, the interview was over.
Yes,
We
very much
saw
so.
we saw each other, like the king is naked. Yeah,
Yeah.
we saw each other that way, without makeup. Hair is not done before the shower.
Mm-hmm.
We saw each other that way, And I go like, and this is the test, and this is truly the test. This is, marriage is a sacrament,
Mm-hmm.
and each sacrament is a cross. It's not a gift. It's a cross. It's a job.
Uh-huh.
And it's a job that you commit to fucking do no matter what, till death do us part. you know and I
Mm-hmm.
go like, a lot of people look at relationships, especially dudes, like this is this, almost, let's hook up just by putting
Yeah.
rings on each other's fingers, and we still, it's kind of like a hookup.
Yeah.
And I go like, dude, be very, very careful. Be very,
Yeah.
very careful, because it can destroy you beyond any war that you can imagine. Beyond
Truth,
any
man.
war you can imagine. And I had, as I said, dudes that been through hell and fire, that relationships destroy them, marriages destroy them, children's behaviors destroy them.
Mm.
And you go like, and this is where, to me, when I teach my students, not to pretend to be some kind of a father figure or whatnot, but I do take the same approach as I take with my son, because he's
Mm.
at that age, 16, 17, where I very rarely praise him. And I kind of, he takes it now as a, well, my dad is never going to say anything positive. He's going to be boss, because I go like, yeah, that's a meal, but you still suck. And,
Mm.
and
Mhm.
we laugh about it and all that. And
Sure.
other guys go like, man, Nicholas is this, Nicholas is that, Nicholas is that. And I'm like, I'm glad to hear that. Just never in my presence tell it to his face. you know
Mm.
and for many years dudes were asking me, they go like, when you going to start giving out the certificates at the end of the classes? So I started doing the certificates. I don't have it here. I would show you. It's
Mm.
fucking hilarious. I give the certificate, and it says such and such has attended for so many hours this and that class, probably not willingly, and I am here to certify that you spend the time with me and you exceedingly suck.
That's brilliant. That's
and,
brilliant.
and then I sign it, and people go like, "What the fuck, dude?" And I'm like, "Do you want me to lie to you and tell you that you're good? I mean, dude, come on, you suck."
You suck. You know you suck. The paper doesn't change that.
No, no. So you want certificate? Here's a fucking certificate.
There you go.
Hang it on the wall. 20 of
There
them. You suck
you
exceedingly.
go. Do it on, yeah, post it all over your Instagram. Make sure you get a close up on it. I suck, according to my instructor. That's brilliant. Oh, that is freaking brilliant. Oh, why do you
Yeah.
think? Do you think there's something about like having that type of hardship, like that loving but hard like relationship? You think there's something to it for boys or men in particular that's important? Because I think that's something that's missing
I
in our
think it's
society.
for the boys especially, but I think for the young girls as well.
Yeah.
And I think where it comes from the old school church.
Mm.
You know, when I come into church, and again I go to Orthodox Christianity churches, right? And when the father starts doing a sermon, I feel like he's punching directly at my face. He's not talking about someone else. He's talking about me.
Mm.
When people go like, well, I'm basically, they say, I'm shopping for the church. And then I walked into this church and I felt like it's at home, like I'm at home. I'm like, I
Mm.
don't know, what home you grew up in, but my home, when I came home, my dad and my mom said, why this shit is not done? Why this shit is not done? Why did you fail with this? Why, what is this B grade for this? That was my home, dude. That was
Ah.
not like, oh, Sonny, you're the most beautiful, sexy dude with the biggest dick in the neighborhood. No,
No, no, none of
no,
that.
you suck
You suck.
exceedingly,
Yeah.
you know? And I'm like, that's the kind of home I'm looking for, because it tells me that I have not lived up to my potential. It tells me not that I suck, but I haven't done enough work to suck less.
Mm.
And that keeps me living the life of purpose, not the one seeking some kind of happiness.
Yes. The pursuit of happiness is probably the biggest poison, at least in the United States. It's probably all over the world now.
Yeah.
This idea that I have to be happy, that I have to be. I try to explain this to a couple of girls I was dating. They were asking me like, "Oh, are you happy?" I'm like, I don't know. That's almost an irrelevant question. I'm I'm here. I'm doing things that are meaningful. Often those things require some level of purposeful suffering. I take some pride in that because it's for a purpose that I think is important.
Yeah.
But yeah, and every now and then I'll do something that makes me feel really joyous, and that's great. But I don't go seeking that on a day-to-day basis to make my day feel useful. It just
Yeah.
doesn't resonate with me. I feel resonance when I'm on purpose.
Yeah.
When I'm on purpose,
E-
and
e-
that
even
often,
go even going to eat, right? So we live in the small town. Well, we live in the country, but the town here, 20 minutes away, like very small town, like 11,000 people, whatever. But we have probably one of the most amazing chefs in this country. who runs a small restaurant. Like like I've been around the world, like yourself. I traveled. I taught in Australia, in Hong Kong, in Japan, everywhere. And I'm a sushi aficionado. You know,
Ooh,
have
okay.
been for many many years. And I run into this guy, who moved here out of San Diego, California, but he's not the California that made California what California is.
All
He's a
right.
he's a
Yeah.
he's a surfer guy who loves food, and
Mm,
knows about food. And so we go to eat there. We have like omakase dinner or whatnot. And yeah, it's amazing. The palettes, everything is just. But you know what really makes? I'm watching him cutting piece of tuna, and I'm seeing the amount of respect, appreciation, and thankfulness he has for both tuna and the knife that he has in his hands. Like
mm,
it's done with love. It's done with respect. It's done with, what I mean? It's
yeah.
like this is my job. This is my purpose. I don't do it to be happy. I do it to do the best job possible. And that's not happiness. That's fulfilling my fucking role.
Yes. Fulfillment.
Yes.
Fulfillment. That is the thing that I think we're missing, even educationally with kids, is
Yes.
having something that makes you feel like you are on purpose. You're standing on purpose. You have a
Mhm.
reason to be here, and that when it's hard and you're still on purpose, it's even more meaningful.
Yes.
Because and I remember Jordan
Absolutely.
Peterson talking about this. Like, people ask the question about purpose and meaning and what is the purpose of life. It's almost the wrong question. It's like
Yes.
you're this human being that needs to be actualized. You were given all these gifts, and the pursuit of those gifts that can be both for you and for the people around the world and make it a better place. Here's your purpose, and everything has meaning because it's assigned to that, or it doesn't have meaning because it's not assigned to that. And I thought it was a really great way to like look at purpose, because often people are just looking for, oh, my purpose is to be a millionaire and just be popular. Like, for the sake of what? For the sake
Yeah.
of what? For your own self, gratification.
Mainly,
like what? Why
mainly,
are you?
mainly, that's what it is. It's really lived narcissism. You know what I mean? It's a narcissism that became you know like we talked at the beginning. It's like, let me build up this facade to show to the world that I do want the world to see, but I'm gonna hide the best way I can what a douchebag I really am.
Yeah.
You know? So
Yeah, I'm really a terrible person. I just have a really pretty mask,
right.
and
And let me respond to one comment here. It's pretty funny. So we have a we have a lady, because she looked at it and she goes like, I know this is not meant for me. This is meant for you boys. She goes, hello, gentlemen. I know this chat isn't for me, but I couldn't miss a chance to swing by and say hi. I love when good men I know individually collab. Thanks, Crystal. Appreciate
I
that,
appreciate
girl.
that, Crystal.
And yeah, for for others being here, no, this is not exclusively for men. I think actual ladies listening to that, they probably would benefit to a certain degree to understand about us dudes, to a certain
Yeah,
degree,
yeah,
but chances of that are not very high, as we know. But it is what it
yeah.
is. Yeah, I get away with a lot of jokes with my wife, and I told her this. I said, so when God created man, he walks up to Adam and he goes like, would you like to have a partner for life? Adam goes like, God, of course I would. He goes like, you want a good one? He's like, the best. He's like, it's gonna cost you an arm and a leg. He goes like, God, what can I get for a rib?
Oh. Oh. But bump. Hey,
Mic
we can do
drop.
that. Hey, we're of the
Yeah,
age of dad jokes now. You're already a dad. I'm just old enough to be one. So
I know, man. So yeah, I told that to Megan.
perfect.
She gave me that look, and so I sometimes I would refer to my wife as McRib. And
I'm sure she loves that. She
yeah,
appreciates
yeah, I
that.
usually do it over the phone, not in person. So I'm
Yeah,
not dumb.
yeah, yeah.
I may look stupid, but I'm not dumb. So
Very tactical decision, sir.
yes,
Very
yes,
tactical decision.
yes.
Well done.
Uh, Buck, do you mind talking about the wolf thing that you're doing? What is it about? If you could explain to dudes listening, what are you trying to achieve, how you do it, and what is your approach? And I wouldn't say the ultimate goal, but what drives you to do that?
So we picked the Wolf Pack. Wolf Pack Initiative is the overarching umbrella that feeds all of our other programs that look very tactical and whatnot. But the general idea is we are looking to build what we call keystone protectors. The story that we tell, if you look at Yellowstone National Park back in, I believe, the 80s, they had wiped out all the wolves. And when they wiped out all the wolves, it changed the entire ecosystem from the way that the rivers flowed to the way that the dams were created by the beavers. Everything in the ecosystem started to collapse. When they reintroduced the wolves back, their mere presence alone made the ecosystem flourish. And just their presence alone, it changed the behavior of everyone in their environment and everything in the environment, and it made it better. And so I looked at it as, I think this world needs more protectors, and we call them keystone protectors, whose presence alone will shape an entire ecosystem. And we know people like that walk into a room and just them being in the room calms the
Yes,
room. And some of those people
yes,
are the most dangerous people I've ever met. And they're capable of being actually peaceful because they have faced the violence both within themselves and the violence outside of it. And so we created an entire protector nation, so to speak, creating different ecosystems for different jobs, because we say this in our community: everyone is a wolf, but every wolf is a pack. And so within a pack, everyone has their own jobs, from the ecosystem of law enforcement to the mom and dad at home. Everyone serves a role, just like everyone serves a role in a hunting party with a pack of wolves. But all the roles are a little bit different, but they're all with this idea that protection and connection are primal. You cannot be a great protector unless you know what you're connected to. And the idea of connecting to something that protects you, both internal and external, is kind of the ethos that we go behind. And so we do it all through our ecological training, everything from the fighting with or without the gun or without the knife. All that stuff is to basically create an identity, or to form an identity around being a protector. And protection being as gross motor as, can I protect my family against harm, or can I protect the sanctity of the relationship that I'm in, to protecting someone's well-being of their heart. And essentially just looking at it through the philosophical lens instead of just the fighting lens. The tactical world is great, and I'm part of it, but I don't see a whole lot of thinking about, why are you doing this, and who are you becoming as a result of what you're doing? Do
yeah,
you even remember why? I know a lot of people got into military or LEO, for example, and they kind of had an idea of what they wanted to serve and why they were there to serve. And then when they got locked into this becoming of this new thing, they get so bogged down by becoming this identity, they forget, like, why am I doing this?
yeah,
People wanted to protect their family and their home, and now they're like trying to protect their ego, protect their identity. And I want to bring people back to, we're all in this thing together, and we're all connected primally, but we choose what we connect to. We choose. We have choice, and we have what we were brought into this world with. And getting people to make better choices is really the goal. And that's why we train the way we train, where, again, when I say we don't do any technique, the real idea is technique you can't separate the idea of skill from the decisions you make, the conditions you're in that will allow you to do them, and the rules of engagement that you've got to go by. If you're separating those things, you're not training skill. Your technique is a lie. I say it all the time, and people look at me like I've been doing it for 30 years. I'm like, how do you say technique is a lie? Well, I mean, I was studying Bruce Lee before I did any of this CLA stuff, and no way is a way was a thing he was saying way before I started this, and we're right back to it. I don't care about technique, this snapshot, perfect picture in time of how it's supposed to, the ideal look or shape of it. I care about the function, and how do we give people experiences within that function that will guide their behavior and make them more adaptable, not just with their combatives, but like their interpersonal skills. One of the arguments I have with even psychology, and I have great psychologist friends, but You go sit on a couch and they talk to you about your feelings, your thoughts. You go like, oh, that sounds great. I can't wait to talk to my wife about this. And then you're on the X with your wife and emotions are rising up. And now I have this interaction and my fears are coming up. And now the training that I got from my therapist is decontextualized from the environment that I'm going to be performing it in. You know, I studied Spanish for 4 years in high school. I got straight A's and I can't speak a lick of Spanish because I didn't have to speak it. I didn't have to speak it. You know,
I was talking a couple months ago, and I know you know the guy, but Todd Fossey, right?
oh yeah.
And so I had him on the podcast, and we were talking. He goes like, "Yeah, you know, like you teach guys, you know, the 30 techniques, and then you throw them not into sparring, but more like a free fighting, and you go, and none of them ever materialize, ever.
Yep.
You know, because I was always an outlier in the tactical community because I always tell people I don't believe in scenario-based training. Because scenario frames the things to where it almost encourages you to have a rigidly limited response because scenario is such.
Yes.
You know, and I go like, you know, what you call ecological, you know, I'll use the word of a free form adaptability, you know, and you use the word of go play. Right, I love that word because in Systema that's what we say. Let's play.
Let's play.
You know, and there's playfulness to that, and it could be playing with the live blades. Right? But we play.
Right.
And there is that amazing freedom, amazing discovery. We don't do repetitions; we do experiments.
Yep.
You know.
Yep.
And I think Todd says repetition without repetition, or whatever the you know the phrases he uses.
Mm-hmm.
And I tell my students all the time, I'm like, I don't want any kind of rote memorization. I don't want, you know, many years ago, the TV crew from Canada came out to film something about Russian special forces, and they wanted me to do some demonstration. So I did demonstration, and they moving around with 3 different cameras and all that. They go like, oh, can you do that again? I'm like, I can't. They go like, why? I'm like, I don't know what I did.
Right.
I'm like, what do you mean? What do you mean? I'm like, it was what it was, and it's gone.
Gone.
Yep. It's probably never going to repeat itself again.
No. It's a moment in time that will never repeat itself ever.
You know, and I read something, and it was from Seneca. I had to reread his letters to Lucius because I read it when I was like 16-year-old in my native language, and now I read it in English. And it was an interesting thing that I forgot. And he said, we never entered the same river twice. The river is still the same, but the water has passed.
Yes.
You know, and I'm like, people knew it. People knew it long time ago.
Yes.
You know,
they did.
And to me, that thing, you know, and you know, I heard like word ecological being used in approach to jiu-jitsu training, and there's big debate going about ecological jiu-jitsu versus this and that. And there's so much like interpretive stroking going on. What is what this word means? And I go like,
what do you mean? What do you mean? Yeah.
Can we get to like a core of the issue and do the work? Because now, you know, one group is going like, well, no, what you're saying is, you know, like when Jordan Peterson was interviewed by that lady. So what you're saying is, no, I said what I said.
I said what I said. Yeah.
You know?
Yeah. Your perception of what I said is on you. I said what I said.
Yeah. And so it's becoming like Lewis, my student said, you know, he goes, it's becoming almost like a desperation because he goes like, it becomes almost impossible to find men that you can talk with honestly. Everybody wears some kind of a fucking mask. Everybody goes like, well, I don't want to show this side of me because I don't know how it's going to affect my future business or future enrollments in the classes or sales of my products or, me advertising this super underwear that makes your balls like iron and whatever. And I go like, so yeah, uh, my ex-wife used to say, trying to teach it to my daughter, to my elder daughter, fake it till you make it. And I go, Sophia, that is not the way to live the life, girl.
Yeah.
Thankfully, she understood that, she learned it, and she's not doing it.
Yeah.
But I
Yeah.
go, so many dudes, they actually faking it, hoping to make it. And I go like, when you meet your
Hmm.
when you meet the maker in whatever form the maker you're gonna meet, dude, you cannot fake it. He's gonna
Yeah.
make you. He's gonna make you.
All will be revealed.
Yeah, yeah. And the
I yeah, I got out of the game of arguing ecological dynamics with people as soon as I got into the game, I got out of it.
yeah,
I'm like, look, I don't care what you call it. I don't care. I love the scientific jargon because I'm a nerd like that and I want to understand better so I can teach. Because I'm a skill acquisition coach first and foremost. I want to pass on skill. If it works, it works. If it doesn't, then I'm going to go on to something else. But before all this was around, like I was coaching mixed martial arts for a long time. And I would have wrestlers come in the gym and we're like, everybody rolls with the wrestler. And it's like the first few times you might catch him, but then like the next day, I can't sweep him. He's not giving up his back. He has all this what we call mat sense
yeah,
that poured over to it. I'm like, well, what is that? How do we get that thing? Because those guys have a leg up, and a blue belt NCAA wrestler or some guy that wrestled in college will make a black belt sweat hard, especially when you're talking about no gi. And I'm like, what is that thing? So the wrestlers wanted to fight, and they would always match my wrestlers up with like, okay, you're going to fight that black belt in jiu-jitsu. I'm like, all right, well, I'm all about asymmetrical warfare. I want to fight unfair fights. I'm not here to fight a fair fight. Like I know my guys are going to be better strikers because I haven't met one wrestler that can't throw a hard overhand right because he's been collar tying guys since day one. So like all you got to do
yeah.
is put your fist in front of it, and then that's going to be your lead into your takedown. I'm like, how are we going to beat the guys on the ground? Well, we're probably going to be on top. We're going to be in the guard. And I started looking at the guard and go like, we don't have time to learn all the shit about the guard. How do we shut the guard down? I'm like, okay, well, what are the things that you need to have in order to have a guard?
Reverse engineer, right?
Yep, reverse, start from the end and work our way back, right?
Yep.
I'm like, okay, well, you need to be controlling your posture. So if you're all the way down and all the way up, there's no submission. And he needs a hip angle. So if I follow his hips and I'm all the way up and all the way down, no submission, that means the guy is not guard. The guard's a function, not a shape. He's just laying on his back, waiting for me to punch him in the head. And so we just played games. Again, no language. I'm like, follow the hips, all the way up, all the way down, all the way up, all the way down. Punch, punch, punch. Legs are open, pass the half guard. Don't go all the way through. Sit on his leg, and then beat him until his shades of his belt come off. And I was training more jiu-jitsu. I'm not an anti-jiu-jitsu guy. I'm like, I know what their weakness is because I train it. Let's just fight for the invariant things, the things that don't change, and keep running the play until he quits. And we're beating guys. And I could go corner a guy I never trained with, but I know he wrestles. I'm like, all right, when you take him down, this is all we're going to do. Hover on his hips, follow him all the way up, all the way down, punch him, punch the pass. And it was working. I'm like, what the hell is this? Like, why are we spending all this time doing all this drilling if I can do all that? And so that was in my mind there. And I remember people teaching me techniques and long form combinations of Muay Thai. And then I go out and spar, and like, none of this shit is happening. I'm learning all that I need to learn in sparring. And so it was a curiosity of mine 20 years ago. And then, Greg Souders comes out in Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu and he starts talking about ecological. And I'm like, that sounds familiar. But I'm like, I'm not going to be prideful and say I know it. I'm going to study it. I'm going to get all the books. I'm going to do all that. And then I'm like, you know what? Like everything else I ever did, I'm just going to throw myself 100% in. I'm going to fail a lot. I'm going to get it really wrong. But I'm going to do nothing but this for 2 years because I want to challenge myself as a coach. I can go in and dial it in the way I've been dialing in for 20 years and not even think about it when I teach. I'm like, but I want to grow as a teacher. So even if this isn't the way, I'm just going to throw myself into it and see what emerges. And we got great success. So again, this is not a religion to me. I care if it works. You know what it's like. We're training civilians, military, law enforcement. They have a limited amount of time and energy and resources to get good. They're not like us training every single day. So if I got a guy for 2 days, What can I do to make sure they have actual skill when things go hot?
Yeah.
And the best way to do that is get them live, but constrain it to a point where in all this chaos, they know what to focus on and give them a job, and then let them hunt and let them play. And then when you look at it, you go, okay, well, I see them paying attention to that, but their attention isn't over here. Next round, we're paying attention to this thing. Bring your attention over here. And over time, what I started noticing is guys become more adaptable. They're not looking for a move inside their head. They're just interacting with a body in front of them. And because they know where to hunt, they know how to get success. And they know if they fail. And it's like they fail a lot. And I want them to fail a lot. So then they get a better relationship with failure, which is also going to be better for them in all aspects of their life.
Yeah.
And then they learn how to iterate quickly. And I just found it very, very effective. But 2 years from now, I'll be like, yeah, no, that stuff is bullshit. I think I like this now. And I'll do that because
And it's
all I care
okay.
about is the truth. All I care about is the truth.
And it's interesting. I had a lot of these conversations with a number of our colleagues in the business, with Craig Douglas, right?
Okay.
Similar way, because, what he teaches, he doesn't have like a homogenous group of students, right? I'm blessed that I have people that come and train with me weekly or now with guys moving across the street daily, and,
Yeah, that's awesome.
so he gets guys that come in to see him for 3 days. Maybe they're not going to see him again for 6 months. And that he says, and I get it. And I totally understand what he refers to it as a short format, and he goes like, I have to teach him to do the most with the least,
Fair.
which kind of like very, very compressed and not truly explains it all, but you get the gist, right?
Yeah.
And I was looking into it, and to tell you the truth, man, I couldn't do it. I could not switch myself to short format approach.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Short format, like seminar style.
Just a seminar to where you go like, I have to cover this, and that. I have a seminar that I call, we have this drill on the gun range we call 2-5 drill, right? And it's basically a drill that takes anywhere between 48 seconds to 5 minutes, depending on who runs it. And it's 25 rounds divided in 3 magazines. It's 5 separate targets that each has to be hit 5 times. No static shots allowed, transitions, the whole 9 yards. And it has to be hit in specific sequencing. And then when the malfunction happens, you have to do specific things. And prior to the drill, there's physical exhaustion, and there are other things are happening. And then there's exposure, and then there's no shoot targets, hostage target. There's a lot of stuff going on, right?
Yeah.
So that's the drill. So when I teach my shooter fighter matrix class, people do it at the end of the class. And then I have a class called 2-5 deep penetration drill. And what we do for 2 days is we work 5 steps around 3 barrels that involve 5 shots, nothing more, for 5 days, for 2 days, nonstop. And we'll go into depth of grip of how to do the transition, why transition changes if your hand comes from underneath versus straight in, how to move your fingers to not allow this to happen. That way it stays on the target within your how to dip the step, how to create spaces, at which point when your heel lands and your toes hit the ground, you establish direction for the next step, because otherwise inertia takes over, and now your feet are one way, but your body's still using inertia. So we go into this incredible depth, and some of the guys that teach more of a short format, they go like, dude, like who signs up for a 2-day class? I go like, well, that's deep penetration 1. There's deep penetration 2. So there's actually 4 days of just studying the 3 barrels, 5 steps, and 5 shots.
Yeah.
And people go like, how do you have? I'm like, this is one of the most fun classes to teach, because then we do it force on force. So now it's about exposure. You know what I mean? How much of yourself you show around the barrel before you can make that shot. Because if you show 80% of yourself before you break the trigger, guess what? You get shot.
Yeah.
And so, this is where I dwell, man. and I'm not saying that there is no place for short format. There's absolutely is, because majority of folks don't have time, ability to dedicate so much attention to train so much.
Yeah.
That's our luxury as teachers. We have that.
Yeah.
you
This is
know
our job.
but to demand that from students, it's kind of unreasonable. So that's why I created kind of like a lifetime student program where people pay one-time fee, and whichever comes first, I die or they die, they can take any class from me.
Yeah, I like
you
that.
know and those dudes, they just suck it in, man. They come to every class, they do the things, they change their lives around, they move from different states to come here and train, and I'm like, that's kind of like marriage. I don't want to have 7 wives living across the fucking street. I already have I already have one in my house.
Yeah, it's
But
enough. One's enough.
yeah, 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 indeed.
That's really, I think it's
So
really cool that you found your modus operandi, your mode of being, right? Like this is the way I want to
yeah,
show up as a teacher. Like there's many ways to show up. This is
yes.
the way I like to show up, and this is the way that I feel most fulfilled and
Mhm.
have better service. Like I like my groups that are, I'm going to be with you for a long time, so you're going to
Yeah,
get the full 9 yards from me. But that's gonna be hard for a group of 30 people that only come in for 2 days, and
yes.
and I and then I'm like,
Impossible.
hmm
Impossible.
yeah, I find
Yeah,
it.
and some dudes
Sorry.
ask me, they go like, I just want to teach like basic classes, people that just bought the gun or whatnot. And I go like, dude, everybody has their place, because there's so many of those people that need that initial introduction. And I don't have patience, I don't have personality to be in that kind of thing. I don't have personality to teach softer classes to ladies. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Because they feel intimidated, they all that. I'm like, I have students that are much better in that, and they don't have that personality, that chiseled Russian face, and and the accent from Odessa, Texas, and you know,
that is an awesome combination of an accent, by the way.
right. And but I'm like, and this is what kills me in this industry, because people talk shit about each other. I'm like, there's plenty of space for all of us. There's plenty of space for all of us. There are people that want to do 2 day seminar twice a year. There are people that want to dedicate their whole life to training outside of hours that they work with their families. There are people that want to just come in and take one class, and they feel they're ready for violence. You know what I mean? We
Yeah,
need to be able to meet them, to meet people where they at. But if they show interest to go further, we need to be also honest with ourselves and go like, I don't do that. I don't do long range sniping. I don't do the night vision. There are people much more advanced than me in that know latest technology. I own a shotgun. I will never teach a shotgun class, because there's hungry dudes that can run that thing much better than me.
yeah, man.
You know what I'm
Yeah, man.
saying?
I
I'm not
do.
gonna teach a stick fighting. I'm not gonna. It's not what I do.
Mm-mm.
And then I'm gonna go like, if someone wants to learn more of a combination of Muay Thai with BJJ with wrestling, I'm gonna go like, you in Virginia, West Virginia, go see that dude.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
so you're sending people to train with somebody else? I'm like, dude, for one, it's not my specialty. I'm not gonna lie to dude. Yes, I rolled with Machados, I rolled with Gracies, I rolled with
Yeah,
very high level people, but I didn't spend 5 years, 3 days a week on the ground with people.
right.
I know my sambo, I know my judo, I know my
Sure.
other things, but I'm not gonna go like, oh, I can teach you jujitsu. No,
Yeah,
no. If you want
yeah,
pure jujitsu, go to people and get it. And I don't
absolutely.
feel like I'm betraying myself and going like, so you're sending people to train with other people? I'm like, it's like saying that you should only eat at fucking McDonald's, which is a sin of itself, but that
Yeah,
separate discussion. I'm like, no, go experience the world, dude. There's nothing
yeah,
wrong with it.
yeah. Nothing wrong with it, and I'm okay with like not knowing everything about everything. That's why I surround myself with really good people. I don't have to be the answer to everything. It's like that movie, the one where the guy's daughter keeps on getting kidnapped. Whatever. It's like he
Oh,
said
the
it's very clear.
Equalizer.
Equalizers, yeah. I mean, Equalizer's one of them. Ian McGregor.
Taken. Taken.
Taken. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Taken 2, Taken again. Daughter keeps on getting robbed. He's like, in the first movie, he says, I'm a man of a very particular skill set. And I'm like, I gravitated to that. I'm like, I know my wheelhouse, man. I'm very comfortable where I'm at. I know what I'm really good at.
Yeah.
And if you want to be a specialist, I have certain things that I'm very good at in specialty. Muay Thai specialty, because I did it for so long. But to be honest with you, I'm not out here coaching guys to get ready for title fights anymore. That's been 15 years. There's a guy named Chuck Martinez down the street. I'm like, if you want to go fight in the ring, you should go train with that guy.
Yeah.
Currently, he's better at that than I am, because that's not my focus. Go do that with him. I know what I do, and I'm okay with like outsourcing it. Go over there, please. Absolutely.
Yeah.
You know, I'm okay with that. I'm okay with that.
Listen, how would people find out more if they're interested in your Wolfpack thing going on?
So we have a couple of different pipelines to go through. The big thing coming up is September 26th and 27th. We have our Operation Keystone Protector Summit, which is open to the public, police, law enforcement, military. It's a 2-day summit in Virginia Beach, where we have different instructors who are going to be training different parts of it, with the whole general idea that protection and connection being primal. Everyone's a wolf. Everyone's responsible for their own self-protection and the people that they care for. So that's coming up. We have quite a few pipelines that we're opening up for our cadre development line. Cadre is just our teacher development instructorship. If they go to buckgrantcoaching.com, they'll be able to find anything on our coaching platform. Coaching is really where coaching coaches is where I really shine and where I get the most joy, because I can exponentially change the world in that way by coaching, leading other leaders. So yeah, that, and if you're on Instagram or any of the social media platforms, just look up Buck Grant. You'll find me there.
So buckgrantcoaching.com would be where they would go to get some extra information, right?
Yes.
All right, I put the link, guys, in the comments. So click on that, get some more information about what Mr. Grant does. I'll put that here on the screen as well. Buck Grant Coaching, and September 26, 27 in Virginia Beach is the event. Virginia Beach is kind of cool place. I spent a lot of time there back in the day. Doing things that we can't really talk about, right?
Yeah. The people we cannot be mentioned.
right. And you still travel quite a bit, and you do a lot of you do still some road shows, right? As far as like seminars and classes and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, we've got quite a few coming up. Actually.
Would that be a website where they would be able to find out information about your upcoming events as well?
Yep. When they go to that site, what they'll do is they'll be able to enter their name and their email address, and then they'll get everything in access to it. So, yeah, we're in Pennsylvania for the Muay Thai University on the 18th. We've got a couple of different places coming up. Too many to mention in one sentence, but yeah, they can get everything they need right there. Or they can also reach me at just buck@wolfpacktacticalsolutions.com.
Okay, actually, let me put that in the messages. Buck at Wolf Tactical Solutions.
Wolfpack Tactical Solutions. Yeah, we're working on shortening that up. That's a marketing thing. We're working on that.
Yeah, I know.
Yeah, it's like if you can click a link, they're good to go. But if they have to memorize it, I spell it wrong all the time. Yeah, Buck at wolfpacktacticalsolutions.com.
Let me see if I did it the right way. Let me put it there, and let me show it on the screen just for you to verify.
Perfect.
Buck at wolfpacktacticalsolutions.com.
Yep, that's the easiest way to get direct contact with me. I know. We're going to change that soon. Too much for me to remember. I have to spell check myself.
I hear you. Anything else, Buck, that you would like people to know, to be aware of, to any other gigs or things that you think people may benefit, or information that you think they may need or want to know? Anything, throw out there. You know, it's a stage.
Yeah.
Shoot.
Yeah, I think that if people really paid attention to their identity, the story that they tell themselves about themselves, to themselves and to other people, that everyone thinks is true. If they pay attention to that, they'll start to look at where it has led them well and where it's become a cage in their life. All of us have some type of identity that we embrace. And I like to think of identity now more like a hat that I put on and take off instead of who I am. Because again, if it's who I am, then I will defend that to the bitter end. I'll protect what I'm connected to. And if I'm connected to my own ego and identity, I will do anything and everything to protect that. To have a looser relationship with that and understand that there's something deeper underneath the surface that's the real you. And some people will call that your soul or your spirit, the inner part of yourself, that is something greater than all the characters that we play in our life. But then once we have an understanding of that, then I can put that hat on when it's time to go to work. Like the guy that shows up and talks to people friendly in public and on a podcast is a different guy when I put my gear on and I've got to go to work. That's a different guy. I've had a relationship with that guy. I bring that guy out. I put him back in his cage. When I'm done, say thank you very much. I'll see you next time. But it's easier for me to be more modulated that way than to say, like, I have to be that guy all the time, because that becomes a cage. That thing that's supposed to keep you free becomes a cage. And it's a cage of your own doing. So to be more mindful of that, I think people will have a better relationship to not only the world, but to themselves.
Very cool, man. Listen, I really appreciate you agreeing. We never spoke before. We exchanged a few
I
messages
know.
here and there.
Yeah, it feels like we have
But
though.
I'm like, you know what? I think for some reason I had this premonition or this feeling. I'm like, I think we're gonna have pretty interesting chat. I don't know why, but just a little bit from my bird's eye view of things that I heard about you and knew about you, and then things that you went through fairly recently and all that. I'm like, yeah, I think we can have a pretty cool conversation that most dudes for some reason are afraid to have.
Yeah.
And I think it's needed, and I think it's needed more often.
Yes.
You know,
Yes.
and so I really appreciate your honesty and forthcoming, and again for agreeing to be on this little show of ours, man.
Yeah. Thank you for the
Uh,
opportunity.
yeah, God willing, someday we'll meet in person, be able to cross hands and play, so to speak.
Yeah, man.
Um,
I'm gonna make a trip out to Odessa. Is it Odessa? Is that where you're at?
no, no, I live in East Texas.
You
I
said
just I just use Odessa because it's the city in former Soviet Union,
I
So I
got you.
say,
Okay.
yeah,
Yeah. Well,
and
I'm always down to come out and train and touch hands with new people, man. So you give me the word, I'll be out there.
yeah, absolutely, man. All right, fellas. Thank you all for watching and listening. Again, you can reach Buck at wolfpacktacticalsolutions.com. And I posted the other link here that was buckgrantcoaching.com, which is the website. You can sign up with your email and get updates on what he has cooking, what he has going. So go check it out. Those of you living in that part of the world, of that part of the country, Virginia Beach is not a hard place to get to.
Not bad.
Yeah, and it has good food. I remember eating there. It does have some
Yeah.
really, really good food. Went to have some good sushi, and those naval guys, specific units, man, when you go out to drink beer with them, they do crazy things, I tell you.
I'm telling
Crazy
you.
things.
That's why I love them anymore.
Yeah, I, yeah. Someday I maybe tell some stories about it, but goodness gracious, man.
Yeah. Maybe
I
off
thought I was
camera.
wild. I was wild when I was growing up in former Soviet Union. Goodness, I was an angel. But
Hanging out with the Cowboys, the Cowboys of the USA.
yeah, I know, right? All right, buddy. Good
Been
talking
an
with you. I
honor.
really
Thank you.
appreciate that. Have yourself a good week and all that. And again, God willing, we'll talk again, sir. Thank you very
That's
much.
good. Thank you. Thank you. Take care.
All right, you too. All right, guys. For the rest of you, again, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you so much for listening to this interview that I had with Mr. Grant. I hope you enjoyed it. I certainly did. Very interesting man, as I said. It was kind of out of the blue. I reached out. Mr. Grant agreed to come on and talk, and I enjoyed the conversation. Great dude, definitely a thinker. So I thank you all for being here. Uh, if everything works out, I should be able to do another live next Tuesday. Uh, so, but I'll keep it updated. Now, before we go, just really, really quickly, a few things. Boom. No games, firearm skills for defensive purposes. This is coming up April 25th, 30th. This is going to be with myself, with Louis Caras of Elcar Tactical, with Jay Gibson, with Tim Morris, with Jerry Nuss, and with Calvin Lim. In addition, we're going to have Josh DeWalt. This is going to be a 6-day class, plus 3 evenings with additional blocks of instruction. The price that you see here is for full 6 days with additional blocks. If you go to my website and click on the link, you'll be able to find other options where you can sign up for 2-day blocks with additional evening blocks as an addition to that. So there are options. No games, April 25th, 30th, right here at Fort Honey Badger. So that's one. Next one, this one is actually April 18th, 19th, which is only a couple less than 2 weeks away. Fight Like a Girl. We talked about it on Students of Violence podcast with Louis and Josh. This is gender neutral. This is not just for girls. Not to insult any dudes, but significant number of dudes are really not that much better. So you would benefit greatly. This is kind of like a cheat code 2-day class where you don't have to develop instantly all the attributes, although I would highly recommend with time and effort you do. But it gives you some cheat code of how to get yourself out of some sticky situations. So that's April 18th, 19th, Fight Like Girl here in Jacksonville, Texas. And then we have Fear Inoculum dates March 10th through 14th of 2027. So this is far away. Few spots are already taken. Do not wait too long. You will see on the scrolling there, this is going to be last class of March Madness. It's going to be February 26th through March 14th. That's going to be March Madness 2027. The classes in order during the March Madness of 2027 will be a full day class on conflict management, and that's going to be on February 26th. After that, we're going to have day off and some private instructions, then Zero to Hero radio operator course for 2 days on the weekend. In between, during the week, we're going to have Shooter Fighter Matrix 1 and Shooter Fighter Matrix Deep Penetration 2, followed by Tactical Radio Operator 2-day class, followed by 5 days of Fear Inoculum. And that's going to be the block for March Madness 2027. Within the next few days or maybe a week or whatnot, I will be putting up a very limited number of spots available to sign up for the whole March Madness as a package. You will get a discount on all classes, including radio operator class and Zero to Hero and even Fear Inoculum. It's going to be very few spots available, so once I put it up, if you're interested to spend 2+ weeks here in East Texas training hard, hanging out with some great dudes, especially myself, and having fun and learning a lot and being very, very tired at the end, I would suggest you don't wait too long once we put that stuff on and make it available. All right, with that being said, let me see here. Yeah, so that has been an episode number 34 with Mr. Buck Grant, who was our guest today. If you liked the episode, again, we went for good 2 hours. Share it with people that you think would benefit to hear about the things that we talked about. And again, we will be back next week, God willing, if everything works out. Nick Engelin, no book recommendations on the days that I have special guests. That's going to be reserved for the days that I do my regular without the guests. So hopefully next Tuesday. Thank you all for being here. Hope you have a great week. Those of you who are my Orthodox brothers and sisters, we are in the Holy Week. Do the things that we have to do. And come Saturday, we'll celebrate Pascha. And then we'll be able to say the words. With that being said, episode 34 of Let Us Attend from Gospel of Violence podcast. Thank you for being here live from Fort Honey Badger in East Texas. This has been episode 34 with yours truly, Sonny Puzikas. Thank you, and may God bless.